the most part, that's pretty much the norm. Every single one of these home builders is using what's the politically correct way of saying this, illegals on all of their homes. I haven't met a single one of these guys that speaks English. I know a very, very little and selective. I know a very selective amount of Spanish, so I've been able to communicate with a lot of them. But I know some of the builders, and almost all of them have admitted to me that most of these guys have really American names that are completely, just bullshit. Raise your hand if you work construction. And raise your hand if you're having a hard time finding work. Well, it's great that these guys have jobs, but further than that, I mean, these home builders selling $1 million homes are doling out labor to the lowest bidder. And obviously it's going to be people who are okay being paid in cash and not really being asked too many questions. It's a shame, because that could be people who are here with families already, who came here legally and actually need the work. And I'm sure those guys too, but you're giving work to people who aren't doing their job legally, and they're not paying taxes, and they're doing shit under the table, and it makes me fucking angry. There's a lot of really hardworking Americans out there. There's a lot of vets who need jobs. And where does it stop? It's funny as a lot of them assume, when they're doing repairs or whatever for us, and to add to that point, the repairs that they're doing are things that they screwed up in the first place. And, our house is still under warranty, so if something was done incorrect, it has to be fixed. It's not people I'm hiring, it's people that, our home builder hired. But, you hear them talking, and they assume, because my wife and myself are so heavily tattooed that we don't know what they're saying. But quite the contrary. My wife is fluent in Spanish. I can get by. And a lot of them are always talking about, be careful what you say, policia, policia, because they see, the cop car out in front, and they assume that I'm a cop. So they're always overly nice to me. So, revamping the video I did yesterday with my audio levels kind of all over the place. Sorry about that, guys. I got called out right as I got done editing, and I wanted to get that video out there, so I kind of just hit upload, and I didn't really rewatch anything that I did in post. So, my bad. If you're wearing headphones, you're probably not going to be able to hear me in this video, but I promise audio levels will be good again. So a couple of just general updates. I did in fact start on the bullpup shootout video, and I gotta be honest, it's gonna be a lot harder than I thought it was. There is just so much to say about both of the guns. Now let me rewind here. In the original, during the live feed that I did, I mentioned that I was going to be using a few different guns, and I have to narrow it down to two. And it's just going to be the RDB compared to a Tavor. And the reason for that is there's so much more that I would have to go into as far as depth on different guns for me to feel like it was a complete video, simply for the fact that not only if I was to add the PS90, I would have to go into the philosophy of the cartridge itself compared to the 5.56. And with the Steyr AUG, it's such a rare gun and so very few people have it. And that could be true with the PS90 as well. The Steyr AUG is just one of those guns. It's more of a niche gun, and it's not really a common gun that people are going to be really grabbing up to be a defensive weapon. And those who have them are, you know, collectors and people like myself, where it's probably not going to be your main go-to weapon. So comparing a gun that was designed in what, late 60s, early 70s, isn't really a fair comparison between them anyways. Just simply for the fact that, you know, technology nowadays is just so much more advanced, and there's much better things out there. Though I really love the AUG, it's just, it doesn't really have a place in this video and for the general philosophy behind the video, which is going to be a, you know, a bullpup variant compared to an AR, and why you would go one way or another. And realistically engaging targets 200 yards and closer. So I have found some decided disadvantages of the RDB, and that was to be expected. However, some of them are pretty strong hindrances. They're not terrible. The gun's not terrible. I mean, it's a sub $1,000 bullpup that runs. That's hard to beat. I mean, that in and of itself is like, well, you know, you could go out and buy, you know, one of the M&P AR-15s for $700-800 and call it a day, and it's gonna run. How well is it gonna run? So the fact that you can get a reliable bullpup for under $1,000 is pretty rad. That said, obviously there's some things that are going to be a downfall. So I'm trying to make the video in a way where the X95 doesn't just completely destroy the RDB and crush your guys' hopes and dreams of me loving the RDB itself. Just simply for the fact that, I'll be honest now, the X95 wins hands down. And I think all of you kind of know that, and it's going to be a known thing going into the video, but I'm trying to figure out a way of shining light on the RDB further than just the price point, in a way that makes it so the RDB is a viable option as well. Because truth be told, I totally feel that the RDB is a good option. Alright, so without giving away too many spoilers, the RDB is definitely awesome in its own right. It's relatively lightweight. It ran flawlessly, which, I gotta be honest, surprised me. It has some definite positives over the X95. That said, well, you guys are gonna see that video. Just know, ultimately my point behind talking about this right now is just that that video is coming, I promise. It's just, I do my absolute best to give the positives and negatives of each gun, and why I feel that they're a positive or a negative. Not just an arbitrary, like, oh, I don't like this because I don't like this. I want to give you guys a open-ended, you know, this is why you should consider this, as opposed to this is my opinion, this is why this gun sucks. I'm not nothing fancy. I'm not, you know, anyone else who's going to tell you not to buy something just simply for the fact that I don't like it, or that I don't think that it's worth the money. For those of you who have the more limited budget and the RDB is something that you guys are considering and it's going to be a big investment for you, I don't want to give you information that sways you one way or another that isn't unbiased from myself and my own financial standpoint. I want to give everything as much of a fair shot as possible. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's what I'm battling with mentally, because there are definite positives and there's definite negatives. Alright, so update on the snake. She is doing good. She's gigantic. She is everything that you would expect from a white lip, and she is 100% mean. She does everything within her power to try and strike me. However, she is totally fine with my wife. Well, I shouldn't say fine. She tolerates my wife. That snake hates me, though. That snake has it out for me. But it's to be expected. We are actually picking up 2 more snakes this weekend. Verified juveniles, actual juveniles, not a 7-foot long, mean 3-year-old juvenile like the white lip that we got. So that is exciting. And they are from very reputable and known vendors, and we are actually going to be able to see the snakes in person before buying. So that's exciting. That's happening. As I said in the actual snake video, we are going pretty full bore on the whole snake front, which is really exciting. We're both really enjoying having snakes, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been interesting. Let's go with that. Interesting. Alright, let's talk about the FZ09. I got my stomp grip. I got my SW Motec frame sliders on. My Carmichael bars. Different turn signals, front and rear. Got my LED stuff all taken care of, because for some reason, even in 2018, Yamaha's still not running LEDs from the factory, so you have to change out a flasher relay. Not a big deal, but so the bike's all squared away. I got the Akrapovic pipe on there, and man, that pipe is amazing, both in how it sounds, how it looks, the power. Definitely noticeable gains. I still need to get tuned. I am running rich right now, and I'm kind of suffering on gas mileage from that, but you know, it's a street bike. So to preface what I'm going to say next, I am keeping my R1. I'm not getting rid of my R1, but I ride this bike so damn much that I haven't touched my R1 since I've done that review. So with that said, me being on the FZ09 all the time, I don't know if you guys saw back there, but this thing has more than enough power to bring the front end straight off the ground. Tons and tons of fun to ride. It's not really lacking in any respect. It could be a little cooler looking, it could be a little more aggressive, and I could deal with a little more power. So that has kind of led me to going back to the idea of, I really like the MT10. It's a really pretty bike. It has the same cross-plane 4-cylinder as the R1 does. It's got 160 horsepower, which is a very dialed back version of the R1's motor, which is just above 200 horsepower on mine. So basically all they did between the two is drop compression ratios. It's still 12.5 to 1, which is pretty impressive. So I am getting an MT10. I placed the order, I paid for the bike, and it's being assembled as we speak. So a change of pace for my wife, and kind of a bummer, but at the same time, an advantage is she is actually selling her R6, and she's selling her R6 to grab an FZ07. And yeah, it's a bit of a downgrade, and it's a shame to see that bike go, but I'm not gonna ride it. It's a fun bike, I'm just too big for it, and honestly it's kind of boring. It's a whole bunch of loud noise with not a lot of grunt, and you know, I'm 6'7", 200 pounds. It's just one of those, I don't know. It doesn't have quite enough power to pull me around, but for my wife it's a little too much for her. And it's a pretty common saying and common knowledge that the two most dangerous people on a motorcycle are the people who are either overly confident, which can be me at some points, but as well as that, there's the people who are a little too scared and a little too timid. My wife kind of has to talk herself up to be able to hop on her bike, and even then, you know, towards the end of the ride, she has more of like a, oh my god, I did it and I didn't die kind of feeling, as opposed to, hey, I had a good time riding, which is opposite of the point of riding at all. I mean, if you're on a bike, you should be having fun. You should be enjoying yourself. You should be doing everything within your power to just, you know, take in the sights and have a safe ride, but at the same time have a blast doing it. And the R6 is just sat there. So if she's gonna hop on a bike that she's actually gonna be able to ride, I'm totally fine with that money lost. I'm totally fine with it. She does ride every day. She commutes to work on her Grom, and she has a lot of fun doing that. She has progressed in her riding skill exponentially just from riding that Grom. I mean, she's to the point of where she is using all of her tire, and if she wanted to, she could very easily drag knee. She can ride out first and second gear wheelies. You know, she's having a blast on that thing. So for fun, I chucked her on this bike, the FZ09, which doesn't have all the crazy, you know, 6-axis gyroscopy gimbal stuff and all the other crazy shit that my R1 does. But this is still a relatively large bike, and she hopped on this thing and she was immediately comfortable, and she had, well, I had to take my bike back from her. She didn't want to get off. And she's like, I mean, it's a little too much power for me, but I definitely love it, and I could see myself riding it as opposed to my R6 and as opposed to the Grom every day. And I was like, well, shit, let me introduce you to the FZ07. So her FZ07 is actually being assembled right now as well. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. MT07. And if I said FZ10, I meant to say MT10. So we are picking up an MT07 and an MT10 and getting rid of the R6. Again, totally cool with all of those decisions, because it means that my wife will be able to ride with me again. So, yay, it's exciting. I will miss seeing the R1 sitting next to the R6 in the garage. However, the R1 next to an MT10 will look awesome. If I can give you guys a view of the Sumner Valley. good enough. So, lots of exciting things happening. New bikes. Snake is awesome. New snakes. The snake video wasn't really well received, but I mean, it wasn't really hated. It's just one of those things. It's obviously not going to be, you know, like the like my SIG comparison video, which got like 60,000 views really quick and actually gained me a lot of you guys as subscribers, and I appreciate that. However, something that I really want to drive home with this point is I'm not out to gain subscribers. It's great and I appreciate it. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for subscribers. I'm just doing this to get information out there, and ultimately I enjoy interacting with you guys. I even enjoy the trolls. You know, I'll never turn down an argument. But you know, I've met a lot of really cool people, and it's been a fun experience for me, and ultimately it's something that you know, I get to share my life with you guys, and a lot of people have a misconception of why I'm doing this ultimately. And if any of you guys are thinking that I'm trying to be boisterous and I'm trying to be chauvinistic and show off my shit, you could not be further from right. I want, more than anything else, more than to show you guys my stuff, I want to show you that this guy with the face and the throat tattoos and the satanic symbols all over him, and what a lot of you think are fucking, you know, anti-Semitic tattoos. It's not, by the way. Satanic, yes. I want to prove to you guys that someone who looks like me, who grew up literally from the ashes, you know, from being molested, being raped, being in and out of shelters, growing up with no family, essentially having no friends apart from my wife, I was able to take absolutely fucking nothing and turn it into this. I bought my first house before I was 30 years old. Again, it's going to sound chauvinistic. I bought my first $1 million house in cash before I was 30. And a lot of you guys are like, oh, it must be nice. And I'm like, dude, get off your fucking ass, fight for it, and do it yourself. I could do it. You can do it too. I don't understand where, you know, if you have the time to sit there and wish, if you have the time to sit there and hope for these things, you have the time to get out there and bust your ass, make some money, make some changes in your lives, go back to school, do whatever it takes, and look at the people, analyze the things that you want in life, and figure out how to attain them. I did it. I mean, you know, so many of you guys have so many negative things to say about my tattoos and how they're so disgusting, and well, guys, tattoos make money. Sorry. My tattoos make me money. Tattooing makes me money. That's the other thing too that I kind of wanted to address in another one of my videos that didn't really seem to click with a lot of you guys, is finding a way to make your money make money. So let's say you have a $20,000 savings and you want to invest that. You could put it in stocks if you're really good at that, but again, that's a gamble. So is opening a business, but if it succeeds, it succeeds. Now, don't stretch yourself to absolutely nothing, but at the same time, you gotta take chances, you gotta take risks. You know, people say that an entrepreneur is somebody who jumps off of a cliff and bets their life that they can assemble a parachute before they hit the ground. And that's very, very, very true. You know, we being my wife and myself, we don't have wealthy families. I don't have family. She does, but her family is far from wealthy. We are constantly helping them out. Fresh pavement, fresh gravel. Shit. So, let's break this down, okay? The dreaded tattoos that so many of you hardcore American, God-loving Democrats all love, and mind you, I am too, minus the God-loving thing, but that's not really any of your fucking business. You have a tattoo, okay? And you have an established artist who is very good at what they do. Now, consider this, and you charge hourly. Both my wife, myself, and 3 other artists that work for us, we're all $200 an hour plus tax. Now, we tattoo on average about 10 hours a day. So if I tattoo for 10 hours a day at $200, that's $2,000 plus tax. If my wife does the same thing, that's $2,000 plus tax. Now, you have an established shop with amazing artists, being my wife primarily. I'm really not that great, though everything that I do is in the shadow of my wife. Okay, so that's $4,000 a day. $4,000 a day. Now, if you have 3 other artists and they're working for you, well, working in your shop as independent contractors, and they're also making $2,000 a day, but you're covering their overhead by giving them a place to work, but not only a place to work, a reputable place to work who does things better than everyone else in the area, and in my opinion, the United States. So now, not only are you making $4,000 a day from your dual income from both my wife and myself, on top of that, we are collecting 60% of everything that our other artists make. And that seems like a lot to take, but when you consider the fact that we're covering everything and they're working under the blanket of the name of our shop, they still walk away at the end of the day with X amount of dollars. Let's say it's $2,000. We collect $1,200 and they get to keep the rest. So, would you be happy with an $800 workday? Of course you would. Now, if these other artists were just as good and had just as reputable of a name in a shop, they could do it themselves. And we actually implore them to do so. You know? So, $2,000 a day from me, $2,000 a day from my wife, $1,200 a day from the other artists times 3, that's $3,600 plus $4,000. It's pretty easy to have an $8,000 day. Now, if you work 6 days a week, let's just say it's a $7,000 day. $7,000 a day times 6 times a month times a year. Ta-da! Now, when you consider the fact that if I'm not tattooing that day, which, I'll be honest with you guys, I tattoo twice a week. Just 2 times a week. So, and on top of that, I refuse to do other people's projects. I draw something and I post it, and if somebody wants it, I have a base rate of what I'm going to charge for that tattoo. If they don't want it, they don't get it. That's how it works. When I'm working as a PI, look at all of these new homes as when I'm riding through my development and you see all these new homes. What is the biggest thing in the United States that sells? Well, obviously number one is sex. Unfortunately, that's not something I can sell, but something that is even, in my opinion, on par financially with sex is fear. Yep. So you just had this $1 million house built. Let's be honest with ourselves. These homes all say, starting in the low 500s for the base model with nothing in it. Yes, that is true. But you start adding, anyways. You have these people who are millionaires who just had a home built for, $750 to $2 million. Okay, well, where do I come into play? Well, I introduce myself to them and say, hey, I'm an armed private investigator. I do TSCM bug sweeps, and we've had a couple of issues in the area where people have found cameras or listening devices in their brand newly developed homes. And people go, oh, is that a problem here? And, it actually has been, where there's been cameras installed in these $1 million homes. So I offer my services to do a TSCM bug sweep and go through their home and find their cameras or find their bug devices. How many have I found? 0. Not a single one. Not one. But on top of the cost of a home, and look how many there are, you guys, they're fucking everywhere. So you have the cost of these homes. What's an extra $1,000 in cash for me to go through your house and make sure that there's no listening devices, make sure there's no hidden cameras, make sure that none of your information's being stolen, make sure that when you had, your fiber, make sure that when you had your Comcast guy come out and, install the fiber for your gigabit internet, make sure that there's nothing in line that's going to be stealing your private information. It seems very, very well worth it. So for $1,000, I'll go through your house and tell you there's nothing there, or tell you there's something there. And I actually take that back. I have found 2 things, and both of them were ironically GoPros. And the homeowners themselves placed the GoPros in the house to make sure that I could actually find a camera. And I did. And they were impressed. I don't know why they were impressed, but, they tested me and I passed, I guess. So a bug sweep is literally me walking through a house with a bug detector and going through every room and trying to get a hit of a signal. And if I get a hit, I figure out what is causing that radio frequency emission. How long does it take to walk through a house? I mean, maybe 30 minutes if I'm being really thorough, which I always am. About 30 minutes. 30 minutes for $1,000. Extrapolate that, that's $2,000 an hour. And I have nothing but tons and tons of these homes to do. So I could either tattoo for 10 hours a day, or I could do 2 bug sweeps. Yeah. And yes, I will eventually run out of homes. There is going to be a shortage of homes that are being built right now. But one of the great things about our community is we just added a gigantic Costco across the street, which, whatever. I mean, it's good for the cost of homes because people want to be close to something like a Costco. And in our area, there isn't too many big shopping developments. But let's talk a little more to the fact of development, and you know, you gotta make sure that you have a future plan in this. So we look at this established neighborhood, a lot of really cool houses in there. Some of my favorites are actually in there. So Todd, if you're watching this, good job. It's kind of like a Victorian-esque feel. Alright, so the abundance of having work. Wait for these semis to get out of my way. Alright, so when I run myself completely dry of TSCM bug sweeps and houses to do it in, ta-da, there you go. There will always be work. Now, let's say for some reason there isn't work. Well, I always have the fallback of tattooing, and on top of that, I always have more houses and more communities, more developments. It's something that is future-proof. It's something that is economy-proof. Fear and beauty will always be recession-proof. That will always be a truth. People will always consume from fear, and people will always consume for the need to be attractive. And I capitalized on both. It's all about finding what you're good at. I'm great with people. I know a lot of you guys think I'm scary looking. The people who know me, or the people who I interact with, very quickly become extremely comfortable with me. Just because I am great with people. I've worked with people my entire life, and it's just it's a knack that I have, that I can adapt to situations and kind of just chameleon myself and get along with virtually anybody. So let's talk about something else I'm doing right now. A lot of the times you guys will see me riding around and it looks like I don't have an agenda. I'm just kind of dicking around in the neighborhood. Well, I think I mentioned it in another video. Right now, I am recording on 2 cameras, and I am also looking for somebody. Well, how can I not be vague? I'm looking for somebody to either be there or not be there. There's a car that should be there, there's a car that shouldn't be there. I've already passed the house. Obviously, for the discretion of a client, I'm not going to tell you which one, but somebody's cheating. Somebody's getting their fuck on right now. So, motovlogging and working at the same time, doing that intel. So I literally just caught somebody in the act. So by the way, this client, I am charging $250 an hour plus mileage. So I just got paid to do this motovlog, and I've been recording for 52 minutes. So I don't know, let's just figure by the time that I'm done with this, I'll have made 400 bucks. See? Money can be easy. Money can be very, very easily attained if you know how to do it. Again, just to shed some light, there is something that you can do. There's something out there for everyone. There will always be something out there that there's a void in wherever you are, and you have a skill that somebody is willing to pay you for. If you don't have a skill, but you see something like, hey, I see a spot right here where I could make money if only I knew how to do, go back to school, take courses, get a degree. In the meantime, suck it up and be poor, but know that you're working towards an end goal that's going to make you that much more wealthy. I don't aspire to show you guys my shit. I aspire to show you guys how to get it and prove to you it doesn't matter what you look like. It does not matter your upbringing. You just gotta do it. End of story. There will always be something for you to do. And if you're not finding it, you're not looking hard enough.